guys, welcome to Pro Gun. If you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button. I'd greatly appreciate that. Glock 19, Gen 3 versus Gen 5. Now, the Glock 19 is probably the most commonly owned firearm in the country, if not the world. And there are two versions, the Gen 3 and the Gen 5. Is it worth upgrading from the Gen 3 to the Gen 5? If you don't own a Glock and you're thinking about buying one, which one should you get? We're going to cover the features of both of these. The Glock 19 basically set the gold standard for striker fire polymer frame pistols. So we're going to go over the differences between the Gen 3 and the Gen 5 so you can make up your own mind. Let's do it. All right, we're going to compare the features of the Glock 19 Gen 3 to the Glock 19 Gen 5. And just to note, it doesn't matter that these are both Glock 19s. The Gen 3 and the Gen 5 apply to any model Glock. Before we start, both firearms are unloaded. I do not own a Gen 3, so I want to thank my buddy Leon Thompson for lending me his Gen 3 so I can do this video. There's a lot of things in common, and there's also some differences between the two, and we'll point that out. So that if you own a Gen 3 and you're thinking about upgrading to the Gen 5, you can determine whether you think it's worth it. If you don't own a Glock and you're thinking of buying one, and you don't know what generation to go with, we can help with that too. One of the deciding factors, though, may be where you live. If you live in the state of California, the Gen 5 is not on the California approved firearms list, so you cannot purchase this if you live in California. You are stuck with the Glock Gen 3. They're both great shooters. There's nothing wrong with the Gen 3. I just wanted to make you aware of it, that if you live in California, the Gen 5 is not an option. We'll start with the grip. The Gen 3 has got finger grooves, which are extremely comfortable. Makes it very easy to grasp the firearm, and it just feels really good in your hand. In the Gen 5, they removed the finger grooves, and the grip has got aggressive stippling, and I just don't really like the angle of it personally, but that's just me. And while we're on the grip module, on the Gen 5, you get two replaceable back straps, a large and a small beaver tail. That I do like. I like being able to get my hand under the beaver tail so you don't get slide bite. The magwell is also flared on the Gen 5, which makes it much faster to load and unload magazines. As far as dimensions go, they're almost identical. The Gen 3 and the Gen 5 will use the same holster, and it'll use the same magazines. They both come with the shitty plastic Glock sights. Now let's go with the trigger. The Gen 3 trigger is the same mediocre Glock trigger. The Gen 5, I noticed the trigger to be slightly better. The Gen 5 has got front and rear serrations. The Gen 3 only has serrations in the rear. They both have a rail. One of the biggest differences between the two of these is that the Glock Gen 5 has got the Glock match barrel. And it does shoot noticeably better. But the main feature of the match barrel is that if you reload and shoot lead bullets, you won't foul the barrel or get it all boogered up from the lead with the Gen 5. Another consideration may be if you want to mount an optic. The Gen 3 does not have the capability to add an optic. The only way you can do that is to send out the slide, get it milled, and that'll cost you a bit of money to do that. The Gen 5, however, has an MOS version, and it's got a plate here that you remove so you can mount your optic. And just so you know, price-wise, you can get the Gen 3 for under $500. The Gen 5 is about $550. But if you choose to get the MOS version where you can mount the optic, that's going to cost you another $100, so you're up to about $650 for the MOS version of the Gen 5. So, if you own a Glock Gen 3, am I telling you to get rid of it and go out and buy a Gen 5? Absolutely not. That's just a personal choice you need to make to determine if the added features are worth it for you. And if you live in the state of California, there's nothing you can do other than buy the Gen 3. The Gen 4 is discontinued, so the only options you have are the 3 and the 5. They're both great guns. They both have a lot in common. I like the fact that you can use the same magazines and holsters. It's just that the Gen 5 does offer more features if that's an interest to you. Please leave me your comments or ask any questions you want about this. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.